This is the PC Perspective Ghoulcast featuring Josh Werewolf, Jeremy Hellhound, Sebastian Peak, and, Jim. Join us if you dare.
Hello.
That's pretty good.
That was good.
I like it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the PC Perspective Ghoulcast, episode 563, being recorded Thursday, October 31st, 2019. I'm Jim Tanis.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Sebastian Peak. How many of these Ghoulcasts have we done, Jim? You said this was Ghoulcast number 539?
563.
Oh, okay. I wasn't even
But
paying attention.
yeah, I mean,
539. 539 was the Twitch today. Sorry, it's podcast day.
Yeah. Well,
For me.
I mean, we can always rebrand without having to start over. We'll retcon it. Right.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what's on the skeleton that's taken the place of Jeremy this week. Is that
Is
a
his pet spider.
Okay, I was gonna say.
That is his new pet spider X that I just got in that I'm going to be taking a look at it.
Oh, they did. They did send
I
one. Good,
promise.
good.
Yes.
Excellent.
But it was just too funny not to put a spider on my fill-in, who's temporary because it's uncomfortable sitting over here.
You know, I have a dollar store skeleton here on this.
I feel so not in the spirit of Halloween. I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right. Did you have
my
trick-or-treaters?
face should be scary enough.
Yeah. This would be the one and only thing I did.
Oh man, sorry. I'm just trying to get the chat is as always. YouTube chat is frightening as I try to bring it up here. But thanks everyone for joining us on this Thursday edition. It's impromptu. We didn't plan to have a Halloween edition. Just scheduling stuff pushed it as it has done frequently, and so I was able to use an After Effects template to have some fun. And of course, Sebastian, as the concern is being expressed in the chat, is going to burn his house down before the show's over.
Oh, I'm sure
So
there are
it's-
RGB
hey.
pumpkins.
It's a real candle in there. In fact, it's a Glade scented candle.
Ooh.
I now have a lovely autumn scent wafting. I think is the right term. From
Burnt
this,
pumpkin smells like autumn?
It does. It smells like cinnamon and spice. It's very
And all
nice.
things nice.
Mhm.
Kisses sweeter than wine.
I wasn't gonna go that far, but okay.
Sorry, it's a song.
I asked for a candle, and my wife had Glade candles, so that's what we used.
Oh,
Don't pass
Well-
out.
yeah. Is it ventilated in that basement?
No,
No.
Couple of holes
No.
poked in the door.
All right. Well, we're glad you could join us. We normally record these shows live Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. That works out to Thursday morning, 2 a.m. UTC. Although that'll be changing with daylight savings changing here very shortly. But we'll have it up there, up to date for you. And if you don't want to miss a live show, head to pcpro.com/subscribe, where we send out an email before about an hour or so before every live stream, just to remind you. And of course, you can always catch our shows on demand by subscribing to our podcast in your favorite podcast app, or by going to pcpro.com/podcast, where we have video and show notes and links to the RSS feeds for the audio and all that good stuff, as well as invites to our Discord. We have a Discord community, and there's an invite link in every show note. So head over there and check that out as well. So we've got a couple, like I said, it's an impromptu Halloween show, so we don't have any real funny or scary things to talk about, but we do have an interesting review of the long-awaited and controversial Intel Core i9-9900KS. This was the part that Intel very sneakily, got in there right before AMD announced Ryzen 3000 before Computex this year, like the night before Intel kind of had their little reveal of this part. And of course, it's now available, and they sent one to Sebastian for review, which he's holding
That's
for
right.
us there.
I am.
That's an interesting box.
It's we talked about this on an impromptu Twitch stream I had the other night. Basically, it's a little bit higher quality than the gift box material that you'll see from like a discount store, like a dollar store. The walls of the box are fairly rigid. I was a little concerned about the bonding of this satin finish paper. I don't know how well this is going to wear, and we'll get into the hinge next. So that was a big issue for me, but the fabric pull tab looks like it might actually have. It's holding up better than I thought. I've used this pull tab numerous times now. It's not frayed yet, but unfortunately, when you open it, as you can see, half of the box opens, and there's no actual dedicated hinge. It's simply the paper lining of this box, which is already tearing. So it's not going to hold up. I was impressed though by the quality of the foam inserts. There's a nice sort of pentagon shape that's been cut out of these. It's a dense foam. I think it's a nice attention to detail with the foam inserts, but the box itself was a little disappointing to me. And although to try to make up for it, they did include this nice fabric bag. So when I do want to take this processor around with me, I can put it in an Intel logo fabric bag. It is rather thin. I don't know if you could see that. If I hold it up to these lights back here, you can kind of see right through the bag. So, the quality of the bag could be better. And I think that's pretty much everything we had to talk about with that. So, I don't know, Jim, guys.
That's because, of course, our skeleton is now hanging from the rafters at Jeremy's house. But this is, as we've talked about in the lead up to this processor, it's nothing new. This is a 9900K. It is Coffee Lake. It is 14 nanometers. It is 8 cores, 16 threads. The difference is that instead of you having to take a guess about overclocking your processor, getting it to 5 gigahertz, Intel is doing it for you out of the box. A guaranteed 5 gigahertz all-core turbo frequency. And it'll hit that. We've seen that, and it doesn't require crazy cooling. I mean, you should use, a very, very good cooler on it. I think Intel's been demoing it with a 240 millimeter Corsair cooler.
Yes.
As the skeleton is repositioned for us.
Their recommendation, I think, for reviewers was to use like a Corsair H105 or 115 or some larger double width all-in-one cooler. I used a Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4, which has it's supposed to be able to cool up to 250 watts. This is a 127 watt part. We all know that number goes up if you're forcing an all-core load like Cinebench on it. So we can talk about numbers and things if we go through just the benchmarks I have so far. Have gone through and done a bunch of CPU benchmarks, have not finished enough comparison benchmarks on the new platform to be able to have gaming stuff yet. But if you look at it, I mean, what would you have expected if we said all things being equal, the clock speeds are higher with an all-core load, and the KS is measurably faster than the K in every CPU benchmark I've been able to run so far. And it was actually marginally faster with single-threaded performance, which I thought was interesting. I did multiple runs of Cinebench, and it was just edging out the K, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but the K is supposed to boost up to 2 cores, 5 gigahertz, right?
Yes.
So maybe I just don't have the best performing sample of the K, but it does not seem to perform quite as well as the new KS in single-threaded. And you can see, like, I ran the Blender benchmark, which does BMW in Classroom, and render times were a little bit lower. You're saving almost 30 seconds on Classroom, for example.
But
which is significant. But
in high-end financial software, where latency is key, did you see market improvements? And also, did you turn off hyperthreading to get even better performance out of it?
Why would anyone do that?
When I'm day trading on my 8-monitor setup with my Matrox video cards, I don't know, Josh. I leave hyperthreading on when I day trade. I don't know about you. I feel like those.
You're not saying you couldn't lose money any quicker than you do now?
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing to lose. Literally, I have nothing to invest, nothing to lose, and nothing to gain as a result.
You can't win. You can't win unless you play the game.
And speaking of the game, I was going to build a wall of NVIDIA boxes to put behind me, but I did not.
I have not given us nearly enough money for you to do that, so come on.
I know. I was like, well,
yeah,
we could have done a wall of Intel boxes too, but I have like 6 of them.
But it is, as you were saying before we got sidetracked there, it is interesting how the 9900K, because I mean it does come down to samples, and if your 9900K just wasn't hitting those frequencies, because there should be no difference in low core count, like 1 to 2 core utilization workloads. It should be hitting roughly the same boosts, and yet we're seeing a small advantage for that 9900KS. And then of course at all cores you are going to see the difference, but again only with stock. I mean, you can take, it's important to reiterate here, you can take a 9900K you may already have today, and if you have a good sample and good cooling, you can make your own 9900KS, so to speak, by just overclocking it yourself. So this is something that they're putting into the market, and what was the list price was $517, is that right?
For the KS?
For the KS. What was
the recommended customer price, which is a 1,000 unit price, is actually listed as a range now. And it's listed as 513 to 524.
Okay.
And
we
the actual
haven't seen that yet, though.
No. The actual prices we've seen started with Newegg at 569 yesterday. Micro Center was selling it originally for $699, but then it came down to $599 later. I was watching Nate from Legit Reviews was posting updates of e-tail availability of the CPU. I don't think anyone's been closer to retail, like recommended customer price. So I mean, street prices so far, the low end has been about 570, which doesn't shock me. I don't know about you, but I was thinking a processor that has been selling for about 485 consistently for the last few months in the 9900K, getting a very special limited edition ultra bend pre-overclocked version. You'd think you'd pay a decent premium for that, because you can go out and buy pre-bend chips already from, like, there's at least one outlet that does this, right? Is it Silicon Lottery? Am I forgetting?
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Yeah, there is one that they'll guarantee you.
There have been ways of getting or like obtaining a very high performing chip, and this has already passed all of that validation, presumably with Intel, where it'll hit these frequencies and it'll hit them within that interesting 127 watt TDP target. I'm not sure exactly what thermal design profile scenario it is that it hits 127, because it certainly consumes more power than that in like all core Cinebench, but I doubt AMD or Intel want you testing their CPUs and saying, all core Cinebench. That is a realistic test for any person to, if you're doing H.264 or whatever kind of encoding. The encoding test, the rendering test I did, it was certainly pulling more than 127, but to actually get a number, we would have to do something more than power testing at the wall, total system, because there's a lot of factors. On the chart, it shows for this, I think 289 watts total consumption under load. That's all core Cinebench. That's with a GTX 1650 graphics card, so a lower power graphics card. But there's also the overhead of the power supply to be considered. It was like 80 plus gold rated 1000 watt power supply. So, 90 some % of the power from the wall actually even makes it to the system. And then there's overhead on the motherboard, memory, storage, and all of that. So I would assume this is still pulling close to 200 watts under an all-core load, which is more than the 9900K. So there's a huge disparity, though, between these Intel processors and AMD's R9-3900X under load, because that worst-case scenario, I only have that recorded just over 200 watts in an all-core load. All other things being equal, the 7-nanometer process from AMD does consume quite a bit less power, and this KS was consuming 54 additional watts compared to the K. And I've overclocked a K before and not very well, but overclocked it enough to get it stable at 5 gigahertz by pouring a lot of extra voltage at it. And it was pulling a lot more than this. And I was at like 1.3 to 1.35 volts. This processor's under 1.25 volts, giving you the same performance. So as far as that goes, if you were looking for just a gaming CPU, like the best CPU for gaming, which I'm sure is what Intel will be going after, because they cannot say they're the best at multi-threaded performance. Clearly, you have 12 cores, 24 threads from the Ryzen part at $500. It is going to beat Intel in almost every multi-thread optimized benchmark or application. So I think this will get a lot more interesting once the high-end desktop parts come out from Intel, the Core X series, which of course are going to be more expensive than this. This $500 range is what I was testing. So the K, the 3900X, and then this, which as it turns out is actually closer to $600 at retail, as my son apparently is trying to break through the floor.
He's doing a good
Dressed up
job.
as a horse.
Yeah.
Well, this is like one of the first times I've seen in ages where AMD really just kind of beats the pants off of Intel, and especially in power draw. I mean, when's the last time you saw an AMD chip do that? It was like Athlon 64 days against a Pentium 4. That's just crazy talk. Usually it's, it's the 9570 that was pulling up, 300 watts and a full system draw. And yeah, crazy.
Oh, that 9590, which I think carried a TDP of something like 220 watts, but obviously it would exceed that under load. I could never actually get one of those to sustain clocks at all under all core load, because it would start to throttle almost immediately.
Well, it'd go down to 4.7 at least.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it was one of those things where if you were watching the system monitor, the CPU would be going up to 100% and down to 40, and up to 100 and down to 40, and it would just constantly cut itself back. But those days are gone. The old architecture wasn't good. There were some bad years for AMD.
It was. They kind of took the wrong branch badly.
Yeah. They didn't predict the right branch to go down. Yes, exactly.
CMT is the future.
Hey, at least they still got good warranties.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
I completely missed that too. I'm like, okay, yeah, 1 year warranty, blah blah blah. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
It can't be real.
Yeah. So just for everyone to be clear, this class of Intel processors usually carries a 3-year warranty, and with the 9900KS, it's 12 months. It's 1 year, and they obviously weren't shouting that from the rooftops. They weren't, they didn't hide it. It's clearly written in the product marketing, but they didn't call attention to it. That's interesting. Now, of course, that's tied with their new, or I guess not new, but revamped processor. What do they call it? It's basically, it's like an overclocker warranty thing where you can spend an extra 20 something bucks. And I don't recall the exact price, and it varies based on.
I think it's 25 for a year.
Okay.
Isn't that bundled with this processor? It comes with it.
Oh, is that the case? Okay, I don't.
Yeah, I think
know,
at least when you buy it at Micro Center, I don't know if every outlet is selling it with the performance. What is it called? It's not overclocking insurance. But that's really what it is.
Yeah, it's basically in the past, if you overclocked your processor and it had damage and it was clearly caused by you running the processor out of spec, they wouldn't cover it on a replacement. But then they have this program that they revamped recently. They lowered the price on it, and basically it's overclock insurance. So go ahead and overclock it, and if you do fry it, they'll replace it for you. But again, you shouldn't make that. You shouldn't tie a warranty to that. There should be some basic warranty that's longer than a year. Because, I mean, if somebody does fry it by overclocking, you can make the argument that Intel shouldn't be responsible for that. But if there's some flaw in this thing and it's running in spec and dies after 2 years, that sucks. I mean, that's no good.
It's the Performance Tuning Protection Plan.
Okay. But again, in summary, so like we said, this isn't anything new. In the type of workloads where core count matters and thread count, AMD is still going to win at that $500 price point with the 3900X. And in areas where single core and IPC is more important, Intel's going to win. And as Sebastian said, he didn't have time to do gaming tests, like dedicated gaming tests. Those will be coming. But in the one test, the one gaming-like test he did, the 3D Mark Time Spy test, you see that the 9900KS does, eke out a victory over the 3900X, to which, as a consumer, you should look at that and say, okay, do I want the absolute best performance at any cost? You say, okay, fine. But if you are a multi-workload user, like many of us are, and you think that, I do want good gaming performance, but I also want to render videos faster and things like that, then you look at the Ryzen side and say, well, that's probably your better bet, because that's going to give you almost as good of a game performance as the Intel part, but also give you that flexibility for those multi-core workloads too. But
yeah, there's no arguing with physics. I mean, there's physically more cores in the Ryzen part, and they've improved their IPC with this by increasing the clocks, as they didn't do any kind of architectural change. It's literally just a pre-overclocked, especially binned to run those speeds at a lower voltage. And obviously there may be concerns about it lasting quite as long as the standard K if they've lowered the warranty by 2/3.
Yeah, which is unfortunate considering Intel's position on the questions over the Ryzen BIOS changes. Because of course,
isn't marketing fun? You know, you attack and then you do the same thing. It's like Samsung. It's like the ads that they had created mocking the notch, and the people who had notch haircuts and people who couldn't plug in their headphones to their phone. They've taken away the headphone jack. They have hole cutouts for cameras on the front of their phones now. Everybody does the same stuff.
Yep. I thought you were frozen there for a second, Josh. You had a perplexed look on your face. You weren't moving.
You look...
And you're muted too.
I often have a perplexed look on my face.
Okay, fair enough.
It's nothing personal. It's just, it's life.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's the 9900KS, or Kentucky Shrout, I guess, as they've been, as we've called it, and others. But check out Sebastian's initial review, and then he'll have more in terms of gaming tests and stuff like that. Like which we said, the gaming side of things is where Intel's going to push this, and it's going to be, it's going to have, it's probably going to win. It's probably going to win these gaming tests. It's just the question of how much and what that means for your buying decision there. But
I have to say, in producing those results, I'm having so much fun this week because what could be more fun than running gaming tests at low resolutions to try to show differences between CPUs with the same graphics card? And in fact, the last CPU launch, the last time I tried testing CPU performance it was an RTX 2080. I did 1080 Ultra. I'm thinking, well, we're getting into where it would start to seem ridiculous to test at lower resolutions or lower quality settings than that if you have such a high-end part. Who would buy a $500 processor and pair it with an entry-level GPU and run games at 720? But if you're simply testing CPU performance with a graphics card, I went both ways on it. The feedback I got from that review was basically test at lower resolutions because you're not creating enough of a CPU bottleneck. So this time I said, okay, I'll go ahead and take a couple of the really demanding games, and I'll do like a DX11 and a DX12 game. So I did Far Cry 5 and Metro Exodus. And I did my usual 1080 Ultra benchmark runs. And then I lowered the quality settings down to high and then lowered the resolution down to 1280 by 720. And in the case of Far Cry 5, also disabled the HD texture pack. Like that matters, because I think that's just more of a VRAM issue. But I've done testing on the low resolution as well. So there will be 720 high results and 1080 Ultra results to look at and see if that makes any kind of a difference. I really, though, it seems almost like this is a pointless exercise, because we could just add a few percentage points to the 9900K results and say, well, here are your KS results. They're slightly faster because nothing else has changed. The one thing that has changed since the last time I did any kind of CPU benchmarking is on the AMD side. I'm not going to go on another rant about AGESA code, but I'm testing with the currently available version, at least the currently available release versions, since of course 1.0.0.4 builds are out there. You can find them, but those are not finalized yet. I'm a little nervous about running pre-release firmware and then actually spending the time to benchmark on that firmware and only to have it change in 2 weeks when it's released, or 3 weeks, or whatever that's going to be. So as of right now, I've actually seen a revision B of the 1.0.0.4 already. So it's not final. So this is all 1.0.0.3 ABBA stuff. And it's only the second time I've even been testing Ryzen CPUs on that current firmware, which in performance is slightly lower across the board compared to my launch review of the 3900 and 3700X. And that all that's going to do is make these Intel parts look even better by comparison in the gaming results. That's my warning. If you compare the launch review of the Ryzen processors to this new Intel review, you're going to see lower results from Ryzen than I did at the Ryzen launch, and it's because of AGESA. And I've actually had to place that into the charts now. We're looking at a 1.0.0.2 result. That'll be marked, and anything else will be marked with whatever version of the AGESA code that it was tested with at that time, just to make it crystal clear and make the charts even wider and the text even smaller.
Well, and it just so we're clear, I always assumed that you were just going to tack on a few percentage to the 9900K results.
No, Jim, I can't do that.
Okay.
Where's the fun in that? Where's the fun in doing that when you could stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning and then rise at 8 the next day and start all over again, to, only to throw away one of your days of testing entirely because you realized that memory you installed was still running at default 2400 speed and not the XMP 3200 speed you did all of your other benchmarking with. So,
well, I mean, I
almost got away with it.
I just assumed in general that benchmarks were made up, but
maybe yours are. No, I can't be bought. I do all my own benchmarking, and it's a painful process.
I would have to actually publish a review to have my benchmarks made up. So there's the.
Biohazard in the chat telling me I need to test at 800 by 600. I thought about this. I need some help. I need to crowdsource this. I need a list of benchmarks that will run on every platform going back to, it doesn't go all the way back to the 386 era. I would like 486. We can stick to the Pentium era. I'd like to know what CPU benchmark I can run on every single era platform. And if I have to do like free DOS on a modern computer to run a DOS application, then I will, if that's what we have to do for compatibility. But
can you imagine how slow Cinebench is going to be on a 386?
I feel like
an original K6.
Yeah. It'll be one of those original SSD versus hard drive charts.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to show the hard drive, every SSD is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the CPU has to be able to do at least 32-bit code to run Cinebench, right? So we'd have to eliminate the 386. That can only execute 16-bit code, I think.
No. 386.
Can it do 32-bit?
Oh,
okay,
286.
I could. All right, so no 286s. And I have an original K6.
Sorry.
I have a PR160 K6, so it's 133 megahertz, I think. I have numerous.
No, I mean
K6
No, the K6 only came out in 166, 200, and 233 initially.
Okay.
So they didn't really have a PR rating on the K6.
It was.
No, the K5 had PR ratings. The K6.
Oh, I'm thinking of the 5. I'm thinking of the 5, the gold top 5 that I have. I recently acquired a K6 450, which is supposed to outperform the K6 2 plus 500. So we'll have to do some benchmarks on that.
Yeah.
It's the cache
6K of L2.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack there. We have to go back in time to learn about the future and to see what the fastest processor for native 16 and 32-bit benchmarking is, I guess, or something.
Okay, because I still didn't get to the point of why you would want to do all this.
Just to show, I don't know, make a graph that starts really slow. And I'll do this in my own at some point, because this is what I could possibly choose to do for fun. Like I could actually have, like, can it run Crisis? Probably just DOS.
BIOS.
Yeah, BS.
Can it run Crysis? No. Can it even render one frame in Blender BMW? Can it do that? Can it display Crysis? That'll be the new benchmark. Can it display Crysis in 256 colors?
Well, you could be like that guy who, during the height of the Bitcoin craze, there was a video where he manually hashed a result by, with hand math. So, well, anyway, as Sebastian contemplates what he's going to do to torture himself, let's move on to the next review. We've got something that we teased last week, and it is. Oh wait, before, what has Sebastian got for us here? You're muted. You're muted.
I mean, I am muted because the furnace is going. I'm trying to be quiet, but Pentium, MMX. I have the lowest Pentium I have is a Pentium 75. I don't have a Pentium 60 or 66. Got Pentium 2. I recently acquired this. This is the kind of stuff that I buy for myself. Box processors, and I don't think I'm just an Intel shill and fanboy. It's just there aren't that many boxed AMD processors from back in the day.
Gotcha.
There were hardly any box processors from AMD.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but were there retail boxed AMD processors before the XP? Like in retail packaging like this?
Not really. I'd never
Not
bought
like
one
that.
until the XP, and the K6 and that. Every time I bought one, it came in a tray, or
Like just
I
a
got a ton of
plain
them
white
all
cardboard
behind me.
box.
Yeah, not even that.
The
It was
fan.
a little plastic box with pink sponge in there. Yeah, and that's what
I think I still got some of that pink
CPUs
sponge
came in.
somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway,
It's a pink sponge is a collector's item now.
I think it's wrapped around my Xerox X8 or 686.
it's time to review the GTX 1660 Super, the seemingly never-ending release of super cards from or just cards.
You know
in
what?
general
You know what
from
else is
NVIDIA.
never ending from NVIDIA? Sneaking in their release just a day or two before another release to make a reviewer's life as difficult as possible.
Of course,
They did this. They did this with the 7.7 launch because they sneaked their initial super launch on the 2nd of that month, and then everybody had to devote time to benchmark 2 new graphics cards while they were also benchmarking new processors and video cards from AMD. But anyway, can you spot the difference between these two cards? all?
No.
You're holding one by the golden fingers and one not.
Okay, good. Yes. No, these are both MSI in their gaming series. I don't even know which one is which without looking at the plate on the back.
Let me interrupt you for a moment just to show that Josh is rooting around his office for something.
Oh, there you go. All right, here we go.
Okay.
It wasn't within arm's reach. Doesn't count.
He saw us. He saw us.
Are those slot A processors? We have to wait for him to put his headphones back on. All right, Josh is
unmute.
putting his Grado SR. Wait, are those SR
225?
There's one.
225s. Oh,
There's one of the packages.
A retail AMD package. Oh.
Ooh.
A pink sponge.
Nice.
Looks like it's faded a bit over time.
Just a little bit. Yeah, that was their package back in the day.
Yeah.
And this is actually it's not the 233. I've got that somewhere else, but this is the K6 166. It was the only one you can get for a long time because all the OEMs were buying the 200s and the 233s. Mm-hmm.
And you didn't even lap the little lip off of it.
No, it was the worst heatsink, heat spreader design ever. Yeah,
that was the first chip I ever lapped.
Gosh,
even worse is when you find these old systems that didn't use any kind of thermal compound, and they were using that heat spreader.
Yeah, and I mean, as the K6-2 was the same stinking heat spreader.
Yep.
And then this is a Pentium MMX 233. It had that. Yeah. And then yes, here's one of the originals.
Oh, the gold top.
Yeah.
Those are more rare because so many of them have been
melted down.
So many pins. So many pins.
Yeah, and then of course, AMD had these for years.
Caution.
That was what they sent. And this thing is dusty, but it's the 700.
Yeah.
That's some
Certainly is.
serious,
Seen some use.
just a little.
Wait, is that a Thunderbird?
Anyway. No, it's the
Oh, it's just the original. Okay.
1999. God, you're making me read this stuff. It's just too hard. I'm too old.
And to think back in the day, it was easy to read. Eh?
K750. So yeah, this is one of the later versions, but not.
I'm looking at YouTube chat. Where are the wind chips? Says Harold. Well, exactly.
None.
Do you have a
I
wind
don't
chip?
have any.
I've been
I
watching one. Check eBay right now if you're interested in this kind of nonsense, because there's a new in-box upgrade kit that's actually a wind chip. If you check out the model, it's like $75. It's new and sealed, but you could get yourself one of the worst performing processors, if not the worst, of the entire era. And no, we didn't. I don't have any Cyrix chips either. No, I have one. I have like a DX50.
The true king of
Mhm.
microprocessors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, okay. So tell us what's up with the 1660 Super.
Let's condense this because we've been talking for so long about other stuff. The 1660 Super, if you look at it, we're looking at the spec table if you're watching the video, and if you're listening to the podcast, go to pcpro.com, click on the review, and look at the spec table. I'll wait. But if the base clock and boost clock of the 1662 Super are exactly the same as the original 1660. The CUDA core count is the same, 1408. It has the exact same everything, texture units, ROPs, same amount of memory, and it's based on the same TU-116 GPU. So what makes it super? They upgraded the memory from GDDR5 to GDDR6. And not only that, but they clocked it at the highest data rate that of the entire 16 series family. The 1660 Ti is 12 gigabit per second GDDR6, and this is 14 gigabit per second. So on the same 192-bit memory bus, bandwidth goes from 192 with the original to 336 with the Super. That's gigabytes per second, which is greater. That's like 50 gigabytes per second faster than the Ti. So they've created this weird product that starts $10 higher than the original. So the launch price is $229. And in fact, the card I got this time, MSI had previously sent, like the last 3 or 4 cards I've got from MSI have been one of their Gaming X cards, which are the high factory overclock, ultra fancy card with a pretty big premium. The one that I tested in this review is actually $309. So it's a pretty hefty $30 over the list of $279 for a Ti. But even comparing a stock clocked 1660 Super against the factory overclocked $310 version of the 1660 Ti, the Super was within 2 to 4 frames of the Ti. It's so close. Like, we're looking at Far Cry 5 results. This is 1080 Ultra. It goes from 77.2 on average with the original 1660, and that's the Gaming X, so that's overclocked, to 95.1 frames per second. That's 23% higher on average, and still like 95th, 99th percentile went up. Everything kind of scales nicely here. You only get about a 4 frames per second advantage moving up to the Ti. It go from 95.1 to 99.1. It's imperceptible when you're playing the game, and there's a difference of $50+ between these two GPUs. And it was the same story in every game, where actually most of the time the gap was much smaller. Far Cry 5 was the biggest win at 4 frames per second for this at 1080 Ultra. Metro Exodus, it was only 2.6 frames per second faster, the Ti was, than the Super. And pretty much on down. And at 1440, kind of the same story. We're like 1, 2, 3 frames per second separating these in most of the tests. So I look at this, and the performance is so close to the Ti, even with a stock clocked card like ours at $229, that the pricing for the Ti no longer even makes any sense. So either the Ti is going to get a price cut, or it would just be, I don't know why anybody would buy a TI when you can get within a single digit of the performance for $50 or more less. Just pick out a stock clocked 1660 Super and you're pretty much all the way to TI level performance. And the reason that matters is because they're not discontinuing the 1660 Ti. They told media in our call before this launch that the 1660 and the 1660 Ti remain. They're not being discontinued. This is simply being added. So I feel like there has to be a price cut coming.
I'm trying to remember the results for the other supers. Is this a bigger percentage jump from baseline to super than the 60, 70, and 80?
I think the 60 was about the same. The 60 was a huge jump because you went up to stock RTX 2070 performance almost exactly. Although I don't know, it was within 5%. So this is closer. This is the biggest jump probably because we're within that number. We're in the 3 to 4% range. So it's close. But yeah, it's 2070 might have been actually a bigger jump. It just didn't come as close to the next card. You got a huge performance increase with 2070 Super because you were getting within 5 to 10% of the RTX 2080 across the board. But the cost, that was the bigger deal there because the 2080 was selling for $699 and you could buy a 2070 Super for $499 and get almost all the way there. But with the 2080 Super was meh, it was a few percentage points faster at the same price. So, I mean, if you're looking at the Super lineup at this point, if you don't need ray tracing, and depending on the game, actually, I found this card to be fast enough to play almost everything at acceptable frame rates. And by acceptable, I mean, like, even the toughest game like Metro Exodus Ultra settings, 1080p, you're still getting well over 40, close to 50 frames per second on average. It's not ideal. You could play at high settings, which is honestly where most developers target game as far as quality goes. So 1080 high, 1440 high, and still have a very playable experience. And 1440 is a lot tougher on these lower end cards. If you look at the charts, it's the bottom 3 results in every chart where the 16 series lives. And it's not really playable. I mean, it's under 40 frames per second on average to do Metro 1440 Ultra. The only reason I even tested 1440 Ultra is just because I'm amassing this library of sort of reference benchmarks, and it's such a tough test that it makes the GPU the benchmark. But if they did not target 1440 with these. In fact, when the RTX 2060 launched, they were not targeting 1440 with that. They wanted you to be at least on the 2070 to be a 1440 Ultra gamer. And I don't know. If you're looking at an ultimate 1080 gaming experience, unless you're playing a game like Metro Exodus on its Ultra preset at 1080, where this manages to get about 48 frames per second on average and dips down to about 36 in the 99th percentile, then this is more than enough card. The biggest thing right now is, and I had retested an RX 580 for this review with the latest drivers as of like this week. And the 580 lags pretty far behind. It's absolutely respectable and it's absolutely playable. We're talking like maybe the Super is at high 70s and the RX 580 is in low 70s depending on the game. And of course, Far Cry is probably the best example because that's a very AMD friendly benchmark. But the RX 5500, the little Navi card that they have specifically positioned that to be their 1080 mainstream gaming card. That's not out yet. I don't have one. When that launches, I'll be very curious to see how that compares to this GTX 16 series family. But right now, if I have about $200 to spend, I'm probably going to find a way to spend $230 and get the 1660 Super rather than buy an aging AMD card. But of course, I say that and anticipating this launch, AMD has lowered pricing. I haven't looked in the last couple of days, but AMD had been dropping prices on the 500 series, the RX 500 cards. And of course, they have game bundle promotions going on right now. So if you're simply looking to stretch your dollar as far as possible, there are great deals out there on Radeon RX 500 series cards, but it's an older architecture. It doesn't perform as well. And if you were trying to future-proof a little bit and buy a card for the next year or two, this is probably the best upgrade to the GTX 1060 NVIDIA has come out with so far. And if I feel like they've had multiple 1060 upgrades this year. Like, we started off the year with we were at CES. Jim and I were sitting in a meeting at CES as the RTX 2060 launched. And a lot of people thought, just because of the name 2060, that was the 1060's successor. But the pricing was too high to make that really make sense. That argument didn't work because it was $349 at launch. And then the GTX 16 series came out kind of as if to answer the complaints about higher pricing and NVIDIA, forcing RTX on people, and they didn't necessarily want it. So the GTX series is revived. The 16 series comes out. It's touring, but it's non-RTX. There are no RT cores. And, we had the 1600 following the 1660 Ti, I think. I'm losing track. There have been so many GPU launches this year. And of course, there's the 1650. What I forgot to talk about in this review, it was in the news post that accompanied it, but the 1650 is also getting a super card.
Yep.
And does anybody remember what the big deal with the 1660 Super announcement was? Like, obviously, this one was just improving the memory and memory speed, but the 1650 Super is going to be the same GPU. They're going to TU116 with the 1650 now. So it'll use GDDR6, and it's going to be the biggest boost. Just looking at the specs, there's no way it can't be the biggest improvement we've seen with one of these super cards. If NVIDIA is going to continue to do super every year, that'll be the benchmark, because it would appear that it'll be about twice as fast as a 1650. I can't wait to test it, because you look at it, and in every way it's a faster, more capable card on a bigger and more powerful GPU. We haven't heard pricing, though. That's the big thing. Like, yeah, maybe it'll be like a 1660, but how will it be priced? Because right now the 1650 is the sort of entry-level card.
Yeah. I mean, you look back to last October-ish, whenever the RTX series first launched, and obviously coming out of the gate at such high prices, like, Josh, do you think that NVIDIA's plan all along was to saturate the market with product, or do you think that they saw that initial? Because when I was talking to manufacturers at Computex time, or not Computex, it was Computex, there was some concern because sales were not as strong as NVIDIA had hoped, and their partners were concerned. And so do you think that they're leveraging their technology to make sure that they have a compelling product at every single price point? They don't want to cede any price points to AMD, or planning ahead to Intel?
It sure seems that way, because you can't throw a rock on Newegg without seeing some different kind of skew. And it's yeah, I mean, they've got it covered from 150 up through $1,200. And certainly the jump from RTX 2080 to 2080 Ti and 2080 Super, right? That exists, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2080 Super is
but
at
I mean,
99 price point, and
yeah, it's it seems that the mid range and low end there is a tremendous amount of product there, but that's really the meat of the market as well. I mean, if they can offer some small boost for a few dollars more, it's an advantage to them and their partners, because they're pushing product at a higher level as compared to, like, okay, I got $150 and the next jump up is $225, and I'm not going to do that. But I got 150 and 185.
Can you come up with $20 more?
$35? Yeah, you're going to upsell yourself if you've got more offerings in between those two big spots. And that's good for NVIDIA. I don't know if it's good for its partners, because there just is so much granularity in that space. It's like you've got to have artwork and differentiated boxes and packing and slightly different designs and all this other stuff that has to fit in this product range. Yeah, I mean, it's good for NVIDIA, but probably the partners are paying a little bit more for it because they've got to put in the extra effort to market these more and to differentiate their products. And they've got 6 different designs instead of 3. And so you've got, a bunch of different PCB revisions and cooler revisions. And then you've got a regular kind of SKU and then a higher end SKU that you change the components are, and you got a different source, all that stuff. And it seems like from a partner level, it's a nightmare for NVIDIA. It's great because they can constantly kind of upsell from where somebody would be before, just because it's not much money to get not a significant upgrade, but a reasonable upgrade in performance.
Yep. And a special shout out to Jordan's family. Apparently we're the entertainment in the car this evening. So,
and they hate us. So job done.
Jordan's family.
That's outstanding.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed. You should have much better taste.
I mean,
family does, obviously.
They have to put up with Jordan. So, I mean, their tolerance is high. Jordan and his delitted 3900X.
All right. Well, so as Sebastian said, this it may be confusing in terms of the pricing and performance, but right now this is a really good option as your 1080p card at that price, and it earned the Editor's Choice Award from Sebastian. At least
because I'm a shill. I mean, that's why I was obviously I was told to give it the Editor's Choice, so I did what I was told. I did forget to make my wall of NVIDIA boxes, as I stated at the beginning, but
now to be clear, this is the MSI variant. So are you also an Asus and Gigabyte and EVGA shill? I mean, is it NVIDIA?
If they want me to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very flexible when it comes to taking money from companies and have absolutely no integrity whatsoever. No, I mean, I gave it the Editor's Choice. I chose to do this, even though it's an NVIDIA product, because it's such a good value. Within the context of this, like you could say $229, why couldn't it be $199? Why couldn't it be $100? But they have their margins. NVIDIA set the base price of this at $229, so their partners have to sell cards at $229 or higher until some kind of deal comes later on down the road where they're offering rebates to retailers to lower the price of the card down, or they're getting some kind of kickback for doing this later on down the road. I don't really know how the partner agreements work, but to sell this level of performance for $229 is outstanding. And I think the MSI card in particular kind of shines because I didn't realize this. I took it out of the box. I wrote up the review. I even emailed the MSI guy. I'm like, oh, hey, I just want to double check on pricing before I publish this. So I want to put the price in there, thinking this is going to be some step up. And he's like, we just sent you the gaming. It's not the gaming X, it's $229. And I'm looking at it like this has the same Twin Frozer 7 cooler that all the other gaming X cards has. It has the aluminum backplate. It has RGB lighting effects, which you can customize with their software. So they've upped their game as far as what you get for an entry-level GPU. So, I mean, I hate to say it, MSI, but I don't know why anybody would want to buy one of your pre-overclock cards if you're giving away fancy cooler design and backplate for the base price. So
you're getting the milk for free, aren't you?
Yeah, they're giving it away. This one, maybe I got a special version because I'm a reviewer, but if it already comes with the backplate and the fancy RGB lighting, Jim, did you notice the last shot of the review where you can see the glowing RGBs in the dark?
Yes, very nice.
That could be you. You could have that glowing graphics card.
Me? I could?
Oh, yeah, I could send this to you.
Oh, nice. See, Sebastian gets all the good hardware.
See, whatever you have in your system right now, Jim, I'm sure you would love to move to a 1660 Super.
Well, I have the MSI 2080, even though it didn't fit in my case because it's too damn long.
Is it a Super? Is it a 2080 Super?
No, it's not a Super.
If you don't have Super in the name.
Well, nobody sent me any Supers. I didn't get any Supers. I'm holding out for the Super Duper edition.
Okay.
So you're the Clark Kent of the bunch.
The Clark Kent?
No Super.
Oh, ha ha. Anyway, let's go. Let's check out a review. We've got something interesting. I'm sure Sebastian will have a lot to say about this, being the audiophile he is. But we've got a review from Chris Koch, and it's the Massdrop Sennheiser 58X Jubilee headphones. And if you're unfamiliar, Massdrop being the sort of I don't even know how did he describe it, but like basically, they offer up a product. Oftentimes, the product is a custom edition or custom run from a partner manufacturer, and people commit to buy it. And if they get enough people to buy at a set price, it goes for that price. And so what you end up with is often very unique products, keyboards, headphones, even things like fountain pens and stuff like that, at really good prices compared to an equivalent product, at a retail price. And in this case, it's a Sennheiser, headphone that is what is it, 100? I think they've got a coupon going or deal. It's 140 with the coupon.
Yeah,
so
160 otherwise, but yeah,
160 otherwise, 140 with. And Chris loved these. I know. Tell us, Sebastian, what's your take on this? I don't know if you have listened to this class of headphone from Sennheiser before, but
honestly, Sennheiser is one of my areas of little familiarity. Obviously, I mean, the one that this is based on is a legendary headphone. It's based on apparently the HD 580, hence the 58X. This is a Massdrop product, or rather, it's a Massdrop X Sennheiser product. But even though it says Massdrop on the box, they have since sort of gone through a corporate rebranding where they're simply drop.com now. And this is not a new headphone. I think they actually introduced this in 2017. But these things kind of go through batches, and this is the current iteration of it that they've just sent for review. Going through other reviews and Chris's impressions of this, it seems like these are nicely made. They're comfortable. Obviously, what matters is sound. And Sennheisers like this have an open back design, so they're going to have a little bit of a wider sound. These have, if you look at Chris linked to a Headfire review, one of the early ones that showed the detailed measurements on these, and they're a little bright. They have a little bit of a top end boost on them. So for somebody like me who's gotten used to that Grado sound, Grados have quite a big hump, a boost closer to the 2 kilohertz range. Kind of that 2 to 4 kilohertz range is boosted up quite a bit with Grados, and their high end is very high as well. So these are going to be a little bit kind of like crisp. Patrick today on Twitch was describing it as sort of a sizzling top end. That, although Sennheiser apparently has had a lot of criticism for being sort of veiled sounding, where everything kind of sounds like there's a veil over it, not quite as clear. So it really depends. It's such a personal thing. I couldn't say that these are great because Chris thinks they're great. I have to listen to them myself, and then my opinions are going to differ from almost anyone else's just because of my own ear training, like listening to headphones that have a particular sound signature for a long time, and then you go to anything else, even if it's technically and measurably better, it'll sound different than what you're used to, so you may or may not like it. But I look at things like, for a gaming, comfort, so over long periods of time, are they lightweight? Do they squeeze your head too tight? Do they kind of feel like the clamping force is a little too high? He didn't have anything negative to say about these, really. The one question about the Massdrop or drop stuff, I think, would be, is the quality control going to be as high as it was for like the signature original product? Or if you found a pair of HD 580s out there on the used market for this price, would those be a better buy than these HD 58Xs? Are they going to be built any worse? I mean, if you could go out right now and buy HD 600s or these 58Xs, that's kind of interesting. But there's a huge price gap. That's why these become so tempting. They're compelling because they're less expensive, significantly so. You can go out and buy a $300 pair of Sennheisers, or you can buy these for $160 or $140 with the promotion code. And apparently Drop does things with like social media promotions and website promotions where they're offering these discounts out. So if you find one of the reviews or find an ad on social media for one of their products, you're probably saving money. And that makes it even more enticing, obviously. So 140 for one of these, I think I might even take the chance on that, having not heard them for 140. If it's a really close to an HD 580, those are not cheap. So still take Chris's word for it, and he liked him enough to give him a gold award. So
yep. And just kind of to expand and clarify on what you mentioned there, so we don't have any type of affiliate or partner deal with Mass Drop or Drop, as I guess they're going. So we're not getting any kind of commission or anything. They sent the headphones to Chris. I believe he gets to keep them. So I guess, disclosure on
it's
that.
pretty standard.
But and they offered this code so that if you buy the headphones through us, you get a discount, but we don't get any cut of that. There's no affiliate or advertising deal at all. So just, and I said, sure, let's do the code, because why not? I mean, I don't see any moral implication there. We don't make a penny one way or the other.
It was a URL. It wasn't like an Amazon affiliate thing or anything. It was just, hey, if you use this URL to go to drop.com, it automatically lowers the price. And it's actually through MMORPG.com, I think. Like, that's what the actual name they put on the affiliate link. So anyway.
Yeah, Chris writes for MMORPG. Is it .com or .?
I think it's .com.
.net. Yeah. So
at prodigy.net.
Yes. CompuServe. And so check those out. And I'll say too, as a Mass Drop customer, I've done a few drops through them in the past, or Drop, I guess I keep saying Mass Drop, but through that company, I've never had a bad experience. The few things I've gotten have been good and saved a lot of money.
Ken, former intern Ken, who at one point I guess was the EIC here, which doesn't make any sense, but
yeah, for about 6 weeks.
Yep. We can write a book someday about our experiences there, but Ken used to link us stuff in our chat all the time, like Massdrop would have this or Massdrop would have that, and that was really where my awareness of Massdrop came, was Ken posting product links.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this? It's like, yeah, there's a new drop on that. Have you looked at it? Have you looked at the new Sennheiser drop? Like, I don't know what this is. I feel old.
And expanding on our disclaimers, Biohazard in our Discord wants to know what my personal take is for the promotion for the NHL, because of
you're the new owner of the Coyotes, right?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't touch that franchise. But although they're doing all right this year. They're doing all right this year. But I will say that I am completely bought and paid for by the Hartford Whalers. Used to be the Quebec Nordiques, but there was a little bit of a disagreement there. So Hartford it is.
Wait. Didn't the Nordiques go to Colorado?
Both of those franchises have moved. Yeah, the Nordiques went to Colorado. Hartford is Carolina. No.
Okay.
I was trying to make a joke.
Yeah.
But failed.
I thought we were going to say that EA somehow has some sort of control over Jim. Look at all those.
They dropped the mass anyways.
Back there.
Yeah. Well, I don't support EA anymore because they took the NHL franchise off PC. They took most of their sports off PC. They brought back Madden, I think last year for the first time, but NHL has yet to return. So boo to that.
But hey, go Montreal Expos.
That's right, Montreal Expos. They have won the World Series.
Way to get your World Series.
I
was trying to explain this to my wife last night. We were watching Game 7, and they keep on talking about they showed like Walter Johnson on the screen. They're talking about the first World Series win for this franchise since 1924. I think is what they're like. This is not that franchise. That franchise moved away, and this is the Montreal Expos
taken from us.
Montreal Expos, who were founded in 1969. This is an expansion team that was moved to Washington. I believe the league took ownership or oversight of them because I'm not sure exactly what happened. Did they go bankrupt?
They hate Canada.
Well, I mean, the team wasn't doing well financially, I thought. Maybe it's all a conspiracy.
That does happen when you tend to screw yourself over time and time again, but they are still my team. And
so you were rooting for the Nationals?
No, because that is the Washington Nationals.
No, they're the Montreal Expos, Jeremy. You haven't understand.
No, they are not.
Oh, man.
Like, if you were a Houston Oilers fan, are you now a Tennessee Titans fan? Like,
no.
Do you move with the team? No?
No.
Just like the NFL doesn't really want to talk about the fact that the Cleveland Browns that exist now are just some expansion team. because the Baltimore Ravens are the old Cleveland Browns. I'm sorry.
Yes.
They simply moved to a different town, but they changed their name, which I don't know why they had to change their name, but I'm sure there was some reason.
We don't want to even get into the Cardinals. All right.
God, no.
Oh, yeah.
The Rams.
Yeah,
Or,
that's true.
yeah.
What city are the Rams
Philadelphia
playing now?
Athletics. Philadelphia
LA,
Athletics.
Rams, Phoenix, Cardinals.
I'm sorry,
wow.
the Arizona Cardinals, Josh.
Yeah.
Who we're playing this evening.
Sorry.
I don't know what the final score is, but
I feel bad because
Right.
I don't follow. I up until now, living in the Cincinnati area, I had never lived in a city with a professional baseball team, so I just never followed it.
oh, you picked a winner.
Yeah,
And-
Wasn't
So
it
your football
Marge
team doing really
Schott owned the Reds?
Yes.
Wow.
Very, very famous and interesting Marge Schott.
When
No
they
idea
won the
who
World
that
Series
is
in
or anything
1990.
about that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
She's interesting.
Well, of course, when it comes to baseball, the Nye Mets are my favorite squadron. So
You're a Mets fan?
I was just a Simpsons
Look,
joke.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's true and what's not.
I mean, you
Everything's
like the
deadpan.
Bills.
I do
You like the
well,
Bills, so why wouldn't you like the Mets?
Of course,
You
because
better not be a Yankees fan.
well, so my dad was
Damn
a Yankees
Yankees.
fan. But again, I never
There's
really
nothing wrong with
followed
that. That's
baseball. In Buffalo, we have the Bisons, which is a AAA team, which when I was growing up were the affiliate of the Indians. And then
What was their mascot?
What was the Bison's mascot?
The Buffalo
Bisons?
Bisons.
Yeah, it
The
was
Buffalo
a,
Bisons.
it was a buffalo wearing a picture of a bison.
Wait, what is a bison? I'm a little concerned about this. Or
What?
confused.
Bison.
Bison?
Anyway.
Bison or
Bison.
bison?
B-I-S-O-N.
Bison. What's a bison?
Bison.
It's a type of
B-I-S-O-N.
I believe that's,
It's
I believe
a
that's pronounced
buffalo.
bison.
That's what I got here in Wyoming. You have
Yeah.
large bison herds.
No, Josh, don't you mean bison herds?
No, stop it. Let's go on to the next thing because it is 10 o'clock. For you.
Yeah. Well,
No.
the next
11.
For me,
thing
it's
is that NVIDIA, finally, we've been seeing rumors about this for a while. They finally updated their Shield line of products, including, or Shield TV, I should clarify, including a new model that is this little tube thing, cylinder, that kind of just sits in line with your cables behind your TV. So they're running the latest Tegra X1 processors from NVIDIA. And they've got some new integrations for Google and Amazon Echo. But Jeremy,
yeah,
tell
if you lose
us,
your remote,
hey, tell us.
where's my
what's this?
remote? And it will tell you.
And it will tell you where it is.
It's very dark in here. I'm scared, and I hope you can find me soon. But no, apparently part of the voice activation isn't just changing channels. It will actually, play Marco Polo with you or something so that you can find the remote that someone hid, even though you live alone and haven't actually moved in a week. But, it's a thing. Other than that, the interesting thing about it is we get to meet the Tegra X1 Plus processor. And that'll be in both the Shield TV and the TV Pro. So it's going to be interesting to see just what effect it has on usability. We do know that it's going to have some great side effects as far as some of the new features we've got. It will be fully compatible with HDR, HDR10, just about any Dolby thing you can mention. Native 4K support at 30 frames a second with upscaling because, NVIDIA's pretty good at that right now. And a variety of connections. As you can see, the basic one is about the same size as the remote itself. She's just a wee little thing with an SD card, although you can upgrade to a larger SD card. That one you're looking at there is the Pro. There you go, Jim. So it resembles a Hitachi product, more or less. The Pro, on the other hand, has an SSD in it, and it's removable. You can upgrade it if you so desire, which is a lovely thing for some of these products after you've been using them for a while because you don't tend to replace these every year. As you can see, it's 256 cores in this GPU. So that's what you need to do native upscaling to 4K at 30 hertz. It's going to have a lot of stuff. It's Android TV, based on the Pi version of Android TV. So you're going to get the entire stuff from Android TV. You get Chromecast. It hooks up with Plex NVIDIA games. It is still a Shield at heart, so you're still going to be able to play games just like you did before. Netflix and just about everything else you can think of. Disney Plus, probably not at the beginning. Its support for Android and Linux is abysmal, and price-wise, it's not that bad. For the basic model, you're looking at $150. For the Pro, it's $200. So it sort of sits right in there at the high-end cable box portion of the market. And if you really like yelling at the TV, well, now it'll actually do something for you, depending on whether you got Alexa or Google.
And hopefully the remote's battery lasts a little longer, because I've had the previous two Shield Pro iterations, and the battery on the remotes just die way too quickly.
Well, now that it talks, it might tell you.
Yeah. Time to order another remote, because I don't think the battery is replaceable. But all right, well, check those out then. If you're not satisfied with Roku or Apple, or who else is in the set-top market these days?
Fire.
Amazon. Amazon, of course. Yep. Amazon Fire.
Fire Stick.
You've got Shield as an option there, as well as the Shield of all of those. The Shield is probably the most customizable to. I don't know about this particular one if they've locked it down in terms of security, but previous models you could load classic game emulators and do some interesting stuff there, and also it can serve as a Plex server in addition to a Plex player, so a bit more functionality and power there. So that's the
so you can stream all of your Linux ISOs to your living room.
Well, that of course, plus my robust library of public domain content.
Yes.
The Charlie
I'm very impressed by Jim's library of public domain content, by the way.
I have.
I couldn't believe how many classic public domain novels in EPUB format there were.
It was the
read
best of times.
Canterbury Tales.
It was the worst of times.
Yep, I can read.
Call me Ishmael.
Mm-hmm. I believe there was at least 2 versions of the Bible on there, which I was impressed by.
Well, it's a controversial book. You've got to account for the various translations and interpretations.
Kings.
But let's talk about AMD. This is tech financial results reporting time. AMD had some results to share. I'm sure Jeremy wrote the post up for us. I'm sure Josh also has some stuff to some thoughts on this. So guys, tell us what's going on with AMD. How did they do this quarter?
It was their highest revenue quarter since 2005, I think. Which is pretty good for them. It's not very good if you're Intel, but it's AMD. They made something like 120 million net out of the quarter, which is reasonable. They went down in the enterprise semi-custom, but part of that was offset. I mean, their semi-custom really took kind of a nosedive. We're in that kind of strange area with consoles that a lot of people have them and not upgrading. They see PlayStation 5 in the future, next generation of Xbox. What is the code name on that damn thing?
Scarlet.
And so people are thinking of that. And so, the semi-custom is not doing fantastic because that's their two main, they're two big customers. And when those two guys are in a lull, well, they're in a lull. But Epic did improve by something like 50% with the introduction of Rome, quarter over quarter. And even though that's still a small number of it's a small piece of the pie, it's significant for AMD because this is a high margin area where they could make some money. And Intel doesn't have anything that really competes well with what an AMD has in terms of cost, infrastructure, cooling, power, stuff like that. I mean, it's very, very dense, high number of threads. PCIe 4.0, the IO guys are pretty ecstatic about PCIe 4.0. I mean, it hasn't been leveraged much yet, but it will be. I mean, it's a big improvement for these guys and these enterprise type solutions. Their compute and graphics Again, it's their first full quarter of 7 nanometer stuff, both in graphics and CPU. So they had a jump there. And it's, it's a good quarter for AMD. I mean, they're starting to ramp revenue up. I would imagine, I think that they were expecting around 2 billion for Q4 or Q3 when it all comes and shakes out. And so it's, it's something that they have never really achieved for a long, long time. I think they approached 2 billion back in like 2004, but yeah, no, it's a good quarter for AMD. I mean, again, it's only a fraction of what Intel has and what, they can do. I mean, Intel had another tremendous quarter because data needs and compute needs are so off the scale right now that both companies can do very, very well. They're not really cannibalizing each other. Sure, AMD could do a little bit better, but we don't know a lot of the things about AMD, like, how many 7 nanometer chips they are actually going to get. How many wafer starts a week are they able to do with TSMC on 7 nanometer, and what is the split in between graphics and CPU? I'd imagine right now it's very heavy CPU because that's what's selling. Radeon is still kind of struggling as a brand, but they're doing better. So yeah, it's it's a nice step forward for AMD, and their 7 nanometer push has paid off for them very, very well. Not just in where I think they see a lot of the positives is in retail type environments, not so much OEMs. I mean, OEMs sell to the retail market, but the Newegg's, self builders, it's like the one place in Germany that they always talk about, that this group sold off 55% AMD processors this last month versus Intel, and it's a huge win. And well, it's not really a huge win worldwide, but it does show where kind of consumer confidence is going. And AMD has a good product, and they're making some reasonable money, more than they have in a long time. And the outlook for them looks really good, especially when we're considering all the 10 nanometer issues that Intel is having. And they're really leveraging 14 nanometer plus, whatever. And AMD is got very, very small chips. And, again, it's the philosophy of these chiplets, that they're well designed, that they interact with their IO core very, very efficiently, and they can get a lot of these chips out of one wafer, and the bins and yields are good. And so they can, really mix and match. Obviously the best bins are going into Epics. Second best are going into the R9-9900 series. And then after that, they can, mix and match and stuff with below that. And they're selling a lot of dies up and down the entire range. I mean, there's stuff that's not getting stocked up. I mean, it's just sell through is really good.
And considering how booked the fabs are right now, being able to get more good chips out of a single wafer is huge, because you don't have the ability to go back or ask for any more runs, because it's already full. It's already booked. You get out of the room. We've already got someone else coming in doing more stuff. So this design hopefully is really going to pay off for them running along with these chiplets, and the fact that the percentage loss might be the same as far as the surface area, but it isn't as far as lost chips as compared to Intel. And of course, the other fun thing is that next quarter, we should be seeing the third edition of Threadripper, and the one that we've been waiting for forever now, the 3950X. So it should be even more interesting come Q4.
And then right after that, hopefully, we'll have Renoir for mobile, Zen 2 for mobile coming. Yeah, very, very good. I mean, we know Intel, obviously, as Josh said, they're churning along. They're always making money because they have so many revenue streams. They're entrenched. But you're looking ahead, everything with Intel is a question mark. Well, not everything, but a lot of areas are a question mark because, They finally made it to 10 nanometer, but availability hasn't been very good. And it's one product basically. And whereas with everything on the AMD side coming ahead is positive. There aren't a lot of question marks. It's just a matter of timing and getting that stuff to market. So good to see competition. Good to see AMD healthy and stable. Here's another quick story as we try to wrap up the news here this week. This is just something Jeremy found there we go. It's a story about looking at Corsair's the Corsair One desktop system that they sell, and they introduced these at CES, I believe it was, much earlier this year, and it's an all-in-one kind of pre-built system from Corsair. And this is, of course, before they went out and bought Origin PC. So, this was them expanding on what was originally their Bulldog system, which was sort of a half DIY to a full-on pre-built system. And who did this? It was I'm sorry, I forgot who it was. TechGauge did a review where they said let's compare the Corsair One to a system we build in a traditional chassis as like a traditional DIY, and they found that the Corsair One did really well in this very compact chassis housing an i9-9900K.
But
RTX
scroll down for the reveal on how compact this chassis is.
Oh yeah, and because when we saw these at CES, I was really impressed with how small they were, but a little skeptical again because of thermals and Corsair at that point. Corsair's lack of experience in this area, and you compare if you're looking at the video version. There's the picture of what TechGauge did here with their traditional DIY system on the left, and then that little relatively tiny Corsair One chassis on the right there. And despite the size difference, the Corsair performed very well, beating their system in some cases, or when it didn't win, coming in just behind. Check out that review. We'll have a link in the show notes to this article. But it's a nice little system. I mean, you're still going to come out ahead in terms of like pricing if you do it yourself, because there is a premium on these Corsair One systems.
The 9900K and 2080 Ti they did is $3,500.
Okay, and then what was the retail on this?
You can get them for a little cheaper if you go for less, but yeah,
$34.99, I think.
Yeah, so the Corsair One model they spec'd was $3,500, and then can you build a system? You can certainly build a system for less than that with similar specs, but
there's probably 18 to $2,000.
Yeah, but you won't. But just look at the difference. What would you rather have sitting on your desk? But all right, so check that out.
PC I built with my own two hands.
Sure. Well,
although really, when you get into small form factor stuff, that's really impressive, and they're not just shoving off the shelf parts in there. Obviously, it's kind of like the Apple trash can thing where you have to have like just a GPU PCB with a custom cooler on it, and there has to be airflow. I'm sure they're using convection plus like rising air up the top with a fan. And
I mean, they looked. Did you saw these, right, Sebastian, at their press event at CES? The Corsair ones?
They had them there. They weren't. I don't think they were. They weren't going into any great detail on them. But
well, I mean, because when you see them in person, they're really nice looking. I mean, a lot of the companies like Corsair that started getting into selling their own PCs, like NZXT, for example, they'll sell you a nice PC, but it's more of a traditional, like they're just building it for you. They're not doing much custom work, whereas this was super custom, clean lines, good engineering. It looked really cool. And my only concern, like I said, was, how's it going to perform? And they never sent us one. They said they were going to send us one. We never got one, unfortunately, but it looks like they perform.
The other small form factor thing that we did see quite a bit of at CES a couple of years ago was, you remember when MSI came out with kind of their answer to the then Mac Pro design? Where
and they had the backpack one. Yeah.
Well, the backpack. We won't even talk about the backpack PC.
Yeah.
But they had a cylindrical system, and if you looked at the teardowns of it, it was not great. And they had shoved bigger heat sinks in there, and it just kind of like shoved it all.
Was that the one with the big fan in the middle at the top?
The Vortex?
Yes.
The MSI Vortex?
Okay.
If you compare the MSI Vortex to the Corsair One, the one is much nicer, better internal layout. It's just a matter of, if you're a hardcore DIY type person, you just physically
There it
cannot
is.
make yourself spend $3,500 on a PC you could build for less. But if you're looking for a pre-built system that's very small, and we're talking like probably occupies a smaller footprint than the 2013 Mac Pro, like the Vortex. We're looking at the Vortex video if you're watching the video here. And a high-end Vortex with a 6700K and two GTX 980s was $4,000. A single 960. Oh, it's SLI 960s. I guess it was always SLI with that, wasn't it? So $2,200 and up.
Well, it had to match the Mac Pro, which was
Mac
a
Pro,
dual
that's
GPU
right.
system. Speaking
The
of
build
Mac Pro,
quality
when
was-
is the Mac Pro, the new one, supposed to come out? It said the fall. I mean, it should be any day now.
I like how NKBHD on Twitter was showing like a calendar. No, he Googled like, when is fall, and it showed him it was from September like 23 or something until December 21st. He's like, okay, I guess the Mac Pro is launching December 21st then, because that's still technically fall. So who knows? I would be surprised if we saw it next month, but
yeah. Well, so anyway, let's move on because we are going a little late here. So check out the Corsair one. Check out the review of the Corsair one over at TechGauge. We'll have that link in the show notes, and hopefully that will let you know if that's the system that you want to buy. Turning to some not sad, but bad news. I guess, Jeremy, there's some issue with some saved games or something where there's a virus or.
I wish I had more time. I was better at Photoshop because I really wanted to grab the to-do list from the Untitled Goose game and add infect a system to the list of things that the Goose would do, because this was just hilarious. It was a security researcher that realized the way that the save game codes work doesn't actually check what's in said save game. So you could just sort of email somebody hey, check out what I just did in the Untitled Goose game, have them load the save, and it would just run whatever code it sort of felt like, along with loading up the save game. So you could infect somebody, and it just, I mean, apart from legal reasons, this would have been a brilliant feature for the game upon release. It just, for someone to figure that out and then just take the Goose out of the computer and into someone else's, I find deeply, deeply amusing. Don't worry, it was patched last week, so they held off announcing it until they'd had some chance to push out the updates. But for that brief moment, your Goose could have got out of your system and ruined someone else's day instead of just that little village's.
And I must have missed this. What is this game?
This game is freaking hilarious. You are a Goose.
Are you the Goose?
It's like a well-polished goat simulator.
Yeah, except it's a little more like there's a stealth thing to it. It's so far beyond just Goat Simulator, but you essentially, there's this lovely little village, and you are a horrible, horrible goose that is out to ruin everyone's day. This poor kid, you've got to undo his shoelaces so that you can steal his glasses, and then steal his plane and make him have to buy it back. It's yes, there you go. That is what you do.
Oh, good. We've had some recommendations that people want to see us resurrect PC per plays. This might be a good one to start with. I'll have to look into that. So is the game, is it early access, or what's the
you can get it on the Epic Games Store.
Oh, okay. Well,
but yeah, there is some Metal Gear Solid to it. That's part of the reason I broke down and did it. Gotcha. Now I don't feel so bad, considering that my Steam vomited all over my monitor this morning. Holy crap.
I was surprised that
updated as well.
That's been out in beta for a while, because I didn't I've had that
avoiding it
for a while.
God.
Yeah, but EA is coming back to Steam, baby.
It's probably their fault.
Hooray.
Origin returns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's Halloween, but also happy birthday to ARPANET. 50th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And remind the younger audience, who am I kidding? No one under the age of 35 is watching this show. But theoretically,
How dare you?
Oh, there's lots.
Don't be ageist, Jim.
Under
Just because
35?
you're so young.
Paul's like 55 and he retweets our stuff. So come on.
well, no, I said under 35 is watching our
Oh,
show.
that's right.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Sorry.
We're nothing
Yeah.
but old people here.
Yeah.
But so ARPANET.
Wait, Jim, how old are you? Are you even 35 yet?
I'm 36.
You're 36. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
All right. You're still the youngest
Hence
here.
the barrier on age.
This year.
Yep, that's it. I'm the lower limit on the audience. But
I'm the oldest and he's the one paying me. So that tells you how crappy
What kind of life choices have you made, Josh? I mean,
Poor. Really
let's unpack
absolutely crappy poor life changes.
Josh,
You just know how
this should
horrible
be
a
the
boss
Penn-
you'd be.
this should be the Penn Star Sis podcast.
It
And
should
Josh
be.
should be writing the chats.
well, Josh missed his chance.
You know,
for
I should be
hostile
working in
takeover.
Intel now, making
Mhm.
6 digits.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to clarify, Josh, under no circumstances would you want to change places with me. You are getting the
Oh,
better
come
end
on.
of this arrangement.
Have you seen my head?
Okay, well, hey, but where there's hair here, there's also a lot more kind of all over. So
Well, I mean, you are Lebanese, so
I'm Lebanese.
Yeah.
I got to tweeze
You're-
out of
you're
my
like a-
ears.
you're a Brillo pad.
Mm-hmm.
You know that? Hey, I remember when I turned 30, and it seemed like all of a sudden, by magic, I could gain like 2 pounds a day if I wasn't being careful. And I also had hair growing out of my ears. I'd never experienced that before, and it was like getting longer. I didn't notice it the first time I got my hair cut, and the girl was like, "Do you want me to kind of trim this up for you?" Like, what? And like, oh, I guess I have a lot of hair just coming straight out of my ear. I'd never even
Mm-hmm.
noticed before. That was fun.
Well, I
And
guess
no
that's one of the
hair.
nice things about
Yeah.
alopecia.
It just takes care of it for you.
Just
It
yeah,
spreads.
it's
You are just aerodynamic by
I
default.
don't have hair in
You
many
just don't have hair at
places.
all, Josh? Let's talk more about this.
It's like
on
I
another
wax my
podcast.
legs. It's so bizarre. Anyway,
Well, anyway, so ARPANET 50th anniversary. So there's a good couple of articles.
yes,
All right.
You know,
many
the
degrees of
hairless,
separation.
the hairless people who developed the precursor to the modern internet were pioneers
Well,
in their fields.
NetBIOS was all by bald people.
All right. Let's
My
get
wife,
to the big
Otherwise-
Jim, by the way, I have a text from my wife from 10 minutes ago. Apparently she was watching at some point and said, I got all excited because I thought Jim was a Mets fan. She says, and apparently you're not. She is a Mets fan.
I don't understand baseball. I mean, I understand it.
What do
I
you
just
mean you
never
don't
got
understand
into it.
baseball? All right.
I just never got. I didn't. I like for some period of time the Bisons. However, I'm
the
mispronouncing that.
AMD Bisons. Yeah.
The AMD Bison 7000.
Mhm.
They were the farm team of the Mets for some period of years, but it was after I moved out of Buffalo. So I'm sorry.
What does this have to do with anything?
I don't know. Picks of the
It
week.
is America's pastime, Jim. You sound like a Canadian right now.
Ken Burns
Oh, I
even
like-
did a
I
full
like
thing
hockey.
about it.
I have
Oh, yeah.
NHL games behind me in my
Hey, Sabres are doing well.
video
Sabres,
feed.
they'll be.
Screw Buffalo.
They've done well so far, but they haven't really faced a strong test. And in the few games where they have faced a strong test, they lost. So, but hey, we love ourselves, Ralph Kruger. He's our coach. Anyway,
And Josh Allen is a huge fan and pulling the city together for all
yes,
of your sports
Mm.
teams.
I'm
we
sorry
love
to hear
Josh. We love that Wyoming boy who's
That
our
connection, yeah.
one Buffalo, as we say, or because our owner owns both franchises and wants to
does.
synergize the marketing. And yeah. All right.
Coming
He's,
in
he's going to monetize the Eschaton.
I don't know.
Sure.
And for our Bay Area viewers, Logan Couture, the San Jose Sharks player, he's a Buffalo. Well, he's from Gulf, so and he's Canadian, but he's a Buffalo fan, Buffalo Bills fan. So
Was that Guelph you just said?
Guelph, is that Guelph, Ontario.
Jim has his own dialect. that he has come up with.
All right.
Bison and golf.
Picks
All right.
of the week. Jeremy, what do you got for us?
Nothing, but I did get a new thing. So they reached out to us to see if we'd be interested. So I'm going to check out this a fancy little color corrector, the Spider Pro X. And look at that.
Ooh.
It's going to be interesting to test. I've been rocking this Huey Pro for God only knows how long. It's got to be over a decade or so.
Yeah.
Well, they were easy to lose. It is literally this big. And if you lost the CD it came with, well, screw you. Because it was Pantone. And so you either owned it or you didn't. And if you lost the CD and wanted it to work again, well, you could buy a new one. That would be nice. We don't really sell them, but you could buy one. So I'm kind of interested to see what the new generation can do. There is a more expensive model of this, which can do significantly more, but also significantly beyond my means to test. So I said, let's just go with one that, would be within the range of someone that's looking to get decent color off of their screens. And one of the big things is that this will do multiple screens. Whereas even with the Huey Pro, it was technically multiple screens, but not really. So we'll see just how this has changed, and maybe even sneak it in a bit at work and see what the graphic designers there think about it. So hopefully I'll get that up in the near future, and
I'm stuck with my Spider Elite 5 or Spider 5 Elite. So
yeah, mine's an X, man.
And we're
like
not,
everything else
we're
nowadays.
not sponsored by Data Color. As Jeremy said, they sent that one to him for a review. So
I don't even know if I get to keep it or not.
Yeah, and I bought this, several years ago, out of pocket. But they're pretty good. I mean, just to again further prove that, I've also got the i1 display.
Oh, nice!
Oh, wow!
And we've been using. The reason I had these out is I was looking for whichever one most quickly allows me to just verify screen brightness for laptop calibration for battery life testing. So I'm surrounded by color meters, and
I used to use a colorimeter for color. I used to use one of those for brightness testing, Jim, and then I just ended up buying. It's probably within arm's reach, but I ended up buying one of those light meters off of Amazon. It's just you just turn it on and you hold it up against the thing and you get the brightness. So
that's probably where I should go. But I had these and
I get you.
Needed a solution. But Josh, what have you got for us?
You know what? Wow.
Drop the mic, sorry.
You sure you certainly did drop the mic.
No
memory is still getting cheaper and cheaper. And we ordered and bought these because they're extremely dense. 2x32 gig DDR4 3200, which works well with the Ryzen R7 3800X that we bought for work. Guy doing a bunch of AI stuff that could use the threads. And better still, he actually has workloads that take up 60 to 64 gigs of memory with AI stuff. So, yeah, they're not cheap, but they're not out of reach for people who really need them. 64 gigs for $342 is... It's a little cheaper at Newegg, but they're out of stock right now. But yeah, it's glorious to see where we are going in terms of memory density and price.
64 gigs on 2 sticks. That's crazy.
Fast.
Yeah. The 64 is impressive, but the 64 in just the 2 sticks, 32 gigabyte DIMMs, that's good. That's
actually a relatively recent thing. We just saw those, I think, at the beginning or middle of this year. I think the first 32 gig sticks hit. And isn't Corsair the first to have like overclocked 32 gig DIMMs? Because I think they
got like 3600, I think.
Yeah,
but that's
it was 2800 when I looked, but that was back in like May or June or something.
Yeah.
What kind of timings are we talking about here?
It's 16, whatever.
Oh, it is? Okay. It's pretty low. It's kind of standard. I mean, most of the kits you see are like 16, 18, 1838 or something similar to that.
Yep.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, Sebastian, what have you got for us?
Okay, so this is along the lines of a stress reliever. Think about those desktop things you'd see in the Sharper Image catalog or something. But I guess this is technically aimed at kids. This is one of those. I didn't know what this was at first. I thought it was a small drone.
It's like a fidget spinner with a safety cage.
Well, it's got all these sensors on it that look for objects, and it works far better in a room with decent lighting. But you turn it on. These things cost about $20. I think this one was around 22 on Amazon, or this one actually came from Costco. But it turns on, you see the green lights. Once this leaves your hand, it just starts flying on its own. In fact, I could launch it upside down. It'll right itself and then move around and try to avoid hitting things. And if you tap the side of it, it'll fall. But otherwise, it just kind of,
of course, it doesn't
for this
work.
demonstration, it doesn't work properly. But my son loves chasing this thing around. And as you get close to it, it'll avoid you. So you can play catch with this thing by holding out your hand. It'll go the opposite way. And anyway.
You can play keep away with yourself. You don't even need
the batteries.
Maybe you need to recharge the batteries. Now,
It's like it's screaming.
Is your kid going to have a Pavlovian response and come running down?
No, when the battery is low, the lights blink red. That's apparently the problem with this. When it's fully charged, it actually pops right up and just starts flying around and hovers around. But yeah, apparently this one needs to be charged.
And this is the Weird Tales mini drone flying toy.
Well, that was the closest one I could find. They only make one of these things, and all these different companies are selling one under their own brand name, and they have them at Costco.
You know what really sucks? Those don't fly up at my altitude.
Oh,
They
really?
just drop to the ground.
Wow.
Oh,
But
no,
it's
it's too thin up
7,200
there.
feet. The air is thin, and those things. I mean, we had some of the air hogs that my brother sent me. He's from like Texas, and we tried flying them, and it just wouldn't work.
Sorry,
Yeah.
though, the plasma TV is still the funniest damn thing.
The plasma with the buzz because of air pressure. Yes.
Wow.
You turn on your TV and you have this 40 hertz buzz. Just constant. And yeah, I never bought a plasma TV at this altitude because of that. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me finish up. I've got a pick here. So it's Halloween and things are scary and some. Oh.
As if a thousand souls screamed out in pain.
But data loss is scary, and I had another family member who contacted me after it was too late, and they had a computer crash, and they had lost irreplaceable data. So we all talk about it. You all know, but some people just don't do it. They don't back up their data. You want to, ideally do a 3-2-1 backup strategy, but at the very least, go out. I picked this one. I don't care what brand. Buy an external hard drive at the very least. Hook it up to your NAS, hook it up to your PC or laptop, wherever your data is. If you're an Apple user, you can use Time Machine. If you're a Windows user, you can use built-in Windows backup. There's third-party tools. There's rsync. There's lots of things you can do to automate a process of getting things backed up. Do it. Don't wait. Go do it. And any data that exists in only one place may as well not exist at all, because one tiny little problem, one effed up Windows update, and it's gone. And then you call somebody like me, and I got to listen to you cry because you lost pictures of your kids, you lost your tax returns. Just, and if you're,
But the real stress is not saying I told you so.
Yeah. And if you are someone who does know that, pay it forward and go find someone in your life who doesn't, and bring them in and get them hooked up. Or, Backblaze, Carbonite, something online. Just don't face the terror of losing your data. Back it up. Little PSA, I guess, on that. But that's the show for today. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, for those on the West Coast, we didn't interrupt your trick or treating too much. Although you could have just put us on like a monitor in front of the house and scared all the kids away. So, that's the service we provide to you. But we're glad you could join us. Thank you so much. We do these Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, 2 a.m. UTC. I got that right, I think. And you can join us at pcpro.com/live or catch all of our episodes after the fact, pcpro.com/podcasts. I guess that's all for tonight. Until next time, have a great week, and we'll see you then.